Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
All right. Thank you. I'll now call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call: Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan. Mugia. Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley. Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening, our invocation is being given by Reverend George Kemper of Ebenezer Ministries. All right. Thank you, sir. And I would ask that you please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, most gracious Father, we thank you for this day, Lord, and we thank you for this time that we come together to do the business of this city. We ask that you continually guide our leaders, watch over them, protect them in their decisions, and keep us all. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Kemper. Clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight, we have two distinct parts to our meeting. The planning and zoning portion will be handled first, followed by the regular commission meeting. I'd ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to the meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor David Alvey, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, is unable to be here. Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, is unable to be here. Commissioner Harold Johnston Jr., District 4. Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, is unable to be here. Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, is unable to be here. Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number one, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number two, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number three, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the planning and zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Thank you. Any disclosures? Commissioner Bynum, the button is not,
Sorry, I didn't push it.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I have had contact with proponents of SP 2019-100.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Yes, SP 2019-100 also.
Thank you. And Commissioner Johnson? Thank you.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone applications, item number 13205, Joe McLaughlin with BHC Roads. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to AG Agricultural City District to subdivide the property into 4 lots at 13841 Markswell Road, recommended for approval. Item 2, 3206 Travis Wilson with Veritas Architecture and Design. Change of zone from C1 Limited Business District to C3 Commercial District for a mixed-use, single-family residential with leasable commercial space at 1847 South 14th Street, recommended for approval to CP3 Planned Commercial District. Special use permit applications. Item number 1, SP 2019-77 Aurangzeb San with Zohan Enterprise LLC, special use permit for a dirt to fill at 1215 Miriam Lane, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 2, SP 2019-96, Joe Hydrick with Cactus Bed Properties LLC, special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 3147 West 45th Avenue, recommended for approval for 1 year. Item 3, SP 2019-100, Desiree Manzi with Avenue of Life, Inc., special use permit for a transition home for teenagers at 3535 Wood Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 4, SP 2019-101, Jason Newman with Exenic Properties LLC, special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 4112 Booth Street, recommended for approval for 1 year. Vacation application, item 1, A 2019-5, Danny Boyle with Boyle Midwest LLC, vacation of an alley at 4141 and 4151 Fairbanks Avenue, recommended for approval. Plan review applications, item 1, PR 2019-22, Brent Thompson's with Renaissance Infrastructure Consulting, preliminary and final plan review for the continuation of manufacturing food products offices and warehouses at 111 Southwest Boulevard, recommended for approval. Item 2, PR 2019-23, Chris Hare with Rose Design Group, Inc., preliminary and final plan review for an ice manufacturing and distribution facility at 1901 South 45th Street, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances, item 1 is an ordinance rezoning property at 3801 Leavenworth Road from C1 Limited Business District to CP2 Planned General Business District, recommended for approval. Item 2, an ordinance rezoning property at 7615 Swartz Road from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District, recommended for approval. Item 3, an ordinance rezoning property at 3101 Strong Avenue from C1 Limited Business District to CP3 Planned Commercial District, recommended for approval. Item 4 is an ordinance rezoning property at 1028 Sandusky Avenue from R1B Single Family District to R2B Two Family District, recommended for approval. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the planning commission. Commissioner Philbrook?
I would just like to pull SP 2019-100, not that I'm against it. I would like the community to hear about this project, and I would like to move that all the balance of these be passed as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, roll call, please.
Roll call: Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 6-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to set aside item SP 2019-100. Mr. Moore?
Mayor, I'd like to just remind the commission, given the number of commissioners we have present here today, we only have 7. And so the only 3 alternatives that are available to you tonight on this action is 1, to approve it as recommended by the Planning Commission with 6 votes. You have insufficient votes to change the recommendation of the Planning Commission or to deny the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The other 2 available actions would be 6 votes to refer it back to the Planning Commission with instructions. And of course, if it comes back then, it would only take 6 votes to adopt the Commission's recommendations, or to hold it over to the December meeting with 6 votes.
Yes, Commissioner Fuller.
So, Mr. Moore, so the only point of pulling the 1 off is for information and presentation, so the community can see what it's about. It's not to vote it down or change it. So how does that affect?
We have sufficient votes.
You have sufficient votes
So we're
to
okay for that,
approve
just
it.
to move ahead.
You don't have sufficient votes to change it.
Good. I just what I wanted to make sure.
All right, thank you. That takes us to set aside item 2019-100. Staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an application for a youth group home. They're working with USD 500 and homeless teens in the district. They come to you recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission.
All right, I'd ask the applicant then to please come forward to present the application. Please state your name and address for the record. And you are not limited by the 3-minute rule, which is not to say go on forever, but, okay.
Good evening. Glad to be here on this Halloween evening, and thank you for this opportunity to just share a little bit about Avenue of Life and the youth home. As many of you know me, I am the former president of the Board of Education here in Kansas City, Kansas. And while I was
Would you
president.
please state your name and address?
Sure,
for the record?
Evelyn Hill, address
Just your
640 Washington Boulevard. I forgot where I lived there for a minute. 640 Washington Boulevard, Kansas City, Kansas. So while I was on the Board of Education, we discovered that we had 1,400 homeless youth. And so we, being the community, got together and we called ourselves KCLE, which is Kansas Community Leadership Enterprise. And it also included the school district and other agencies here in KCK. And we tried to come up with one thing we could do in the community that would really make an impact. And so we decided that one thing we would do would be to decrease homelessness in the KCK school district. And I am happy to say we were able to get that accomplished. We decreased homelessness in the school district by over 50%. But it was not just our organization. Avenue of Life was the anchor organization, but all the other organizations in the community that worked with us, we worked together to make a difference for these kids. And of course, it improved attendance, it improved many, many things by kids being and having a home. Well, in the midst of that whole process, we also discovered we had unaccompanied youth, meaning we had kids who were couch surfing, spending the night at Walmart, getting up in the morning, brushing their teeth at McDonald's, and we tried to figure out what could we do to help these youth. We don't have any family shelters here in Wyandotte County. So again, here we are, Avenue of Life and other agencies trying to figure out what can we do. So we came up with the idea, the school district, Avenue of Life and others, came up with the idea of let's have a youth home, not a youth shelter, very different perspective, a youth home where they could call this home. And we wanted it decorated like a home. You get to eat quality meals, but not only that, the opportunity to learn entrepreneurial opportunities, to learn how to sew if you'd like, learn how to cook, just many, many other opportunities. We would also have a licensed counselor on site. We'd have proper security on site. This is not necessarily for kids who are having behavioral problems. This is for kids who need a home. They would not come to Avenue of Life Youth Home unless they were referred to us from the school district. So I'm going to leave a few minutes also for our school district individual, Ms. Lisa Garcia, to share a few words with you also. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Garcia Stewart. I reside at 12817 Lathrop Avenue. And just as Dr. Hill has shared, this partnership with Avenue of Life and KCLE is critical for our youth in our district. Our trajectory to keep them on time and on track to graduate is imperative that they have a stable home. And so when a student enrolls into the district, they have to provide, their family does, proof of residency through a utility bill, obviously have a guardian. And so we have unaccompanied youth by no fault of their own without a living parent or guardian, perhaps because of a death or incarceration, or if their family was deported, they're here living then without a home. And any shelters that because we provide transportation, are in Missouri. So this will provide them a stable home, a stable meal. They will be able to continue in their school of origin. They'll be able to maintain their education. And from an education standpoint, our role is to remove all those barriers if they qualify for McKinney-Vento, so they can stay in their school of origin, because that is what we can provide in terms of their stability. So we are looking forward to maintaining this partnership for unaccompanied youth so they can continue their education, they can graduate, and we can provide them a stable place to live for our youth, because those scenarios that Dr. Hill provided are very real and very true from our families. So we want to do everything we can to maintain their education and graduation. So thank you for listening so much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Oh. All right, seeing none, anyone present in opposition who would like to speak on this? All right, any comments from or questions from the commission?
I want to thank you for coming forward, and I want to tell the folks that if they listen to this meeting, they need to go back to the planning and zoning meeting, pull that up, and listen, and they'll be able to hear a more comprehensive example of what you are doing. So thank you so very much for your work.
I'd like to just also reiterate that certainly beyond what they are preparing to do right now, Avenue of Life has been a positive change agent in Wyandotte County for many years. I've always said that they have done a whole lot with a little bit of money. And I'm just surprised that with Dr. Hill coming here and just hearing her, she speaks very passionately. But Desiree should be up here with them because she is the leader of the ship, so to speak, and I want to acknowledge her presence as well. I have no doubt that this program will be successful. I think it will be so successful that it will be replicated in other areas, not only in the city or the region, but also in other areas of our state as well. So with that, I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burrows. Aye. Townsend.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 6-0, that motion carries.
That concludes the planning and zoning portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move to the regular portion of our agenda. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move for approval of all items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call Burrows. Aye. Townsend.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 6-0, that motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned.